Welcome back to the Perfect Ride series. Today we're going to be checking out the RadTrike from Rad Power Bikes and walking through some of the use cases, different things, and seeing if this is the right e-bike for you. Now, we're not trying to sell you anything. You can tell that from the lack of affiliate links down below. What we are interested in doing is walking you through the bike and making sure that it is the right fit for you. Now, Rad did send us this bike for free. However, they're not paying for this video and all these opinions are our own. In the Perfect Ride series, we believe that there's not really such a thing as the perfect e-bike, but there just might be a perfect e-bike for you. So let's dive into the RadTrike and see if that's the case here. The first and most important question is going to be price point. Is the RadTrike in your budget? Now, currently it is selling for $16.99. If that's in your budget, only you would be able to answer that. Now, they do also offer financing through Affirm. So if you want to split this up into monthly payments, you should have that option. Now, the first question I always ask somebody when they walk into Power On Ebikes is, what are you going to use it for? I think use case is the most important thing when we are deciding on what type of EV you should get. So the use case here, we can make a couple of assumptions. Number one, you're looking at trikes. So you probably want something that is fairly stable. We do have 3 tires here, it's self-balancing in that sense. So this is going to be something that gives you a lot of stability. Now, most trikes don't have a fast top speed, so you're also probably going comfortable at 14 miles per hour, which is the top speed of the RadTrike. You also are looking for a trike that has some decent nominal power, which is true in the case of the RadTrike's 750 watt front hub motor. Now, you might want the ability to carry some things with you. Trikes in general usually have a rear basket for that purpose. Now, the RadTrike doesn't come with anything in the rear stock, but you can add that on if you are looking to carry some things here. You've also got the option to attach a front rack here, so it really does open up a lot of the possibilities for you being able to carry some things. One of the things it does come stock with, which is pretty cool, is the comfort support seat with an adjustable backrest. This is actually a great upgrade for any trike. Allows you to be in an upright riding position, and it's cool that it comes with the standard RadTrike. As far as weight is concerned, the trike is rated for a maximum payload of 415 pounds with a maximum rider weight of 325 pounds. Which basically means the rear rack is rated for 60 pounds of carrying capacity. The next thing to look at is range. How far do you need this trike to go on a single charge? The RadTrike has a removable 10 amp hour battery, so you need the key to turn it into the on position, but the key does not need to stay there when the battery's in use. So kind of a nice thing. A lot of those keys you put in, you have to turn it on. The key has to stay in there for the ignition to stay on. Here, you do need the key to turn it on, but you can pull it out and put it back in your pocket or somewhere else. Now, Rad claims you can get 55 plus miles of range on this battery, but I think it's a little bit more reasonable to assume that most folks would probably get closer to 40 to 50 miles if you're doing a mix of pedaling and throttle at slower speeds. Now, if you've got hills or other factors, your range may decrease a bit, but since we're not flying around at 28 miles per hour here, I think that'll be enough range for most folks. The other factor in range is the fact that the RadTrike is a single speed, so it should fare well with small to average inclines, but probably wouldn't fare too well with moderate to extreme inclines. Next, we'll talk about what type of terrain this trike should be on. Now, because we've got these thinner tires, this is something you're gonna wanna stay on hard-packed surfaces with, concrete, asphalt, some, well-maintained trails, things like that. But you wouldn't wanna necessarily take it off-road into sand or loose terrain. As I mentioned, these tires are a bit on the smaller side, with all 3 tires being 18 inches by 2.25 inches. So these wouldn't do well in soft dirt or sand. And if you're primarily gonna be riding this thing off-road and spending some time in the sand, I'd recommend looking at something that has at least a 4-inch wide tire. Now we could get into, should you ride an electric bike on the beach? Should you not? It's a debate for another time. If you plan to use it, just know that you're probably gonna want something with 4-inch tires. We can leave the debate for maybe a different video. Now, if you're thinking you're gonna be transporting this trike, whether that's putting it on a custom trike rack for the back of the car, putting it in the back of a pickup, or just lifting it in general, the weight would be a big factor. So I weighed this trike in at 78.79 pounds with the battery installed. Now, the battery itself weighs 8.23 pounds, so if you take that off, that gets down to 70.56 pounds. And as far as trikes go, that's not terribly heavy. Now, only you can know if it's too heavy for you to transport, so I will just leave you with the facts. A common question that we see online a lot is how wide these trikes are. It's sort of a give and take. The wider the trike, the more stable the platform. However, it does tend to limit you on the doorways that you can bring it in and out of. The width of the RadTrike here is 33 1/8 inch at the rear wheels. So this tells us 2 things. First off, it's gonna be pretty stable since it is that wider wheelbase. Now this is one of the more stable trikes I've ridden due to its low center of gravity, smaller tires, and wide wheelbase. It's not impossible to put it on two wheels, but you really have to throw your weight in it to do so. It also has a differential in the rear axle, which means the tires can spin at different speeds and make basically 0-degree turns. Secondly, it may be difficult to get through some doors, as we've mentioned, depending on how wide your doors are. I'd recommend measuring your doors if you're in an apartment or a house without a garage. If you got a garage, you should be just fine. The user interface here is pretty simple, and that is probably a good thing. It shows you how much battery you have left, what power level you're on, and a light indicator for when the lights are on. All the readouts are easy to see and fairly large as well, which could be another plus. I think for this type of bike, keeping it simple was the right call here. You can raise the power level by pressing the up button, you can lower the power level by pressing the down button, and you can turn on or off the lights by pressing the light button. If you hold the power button, you can turn the trike on or off. The last thing to chat about before we get into some more of the technical details is the safety aspects of the RadTrike. The RadTrike is equipped with a front mechanical disc brake with a 180mm rotor. It also has an old school coaster brake where you just pedal backwards and it locks up the rear wheels, like when we were kids. It does have brake light integration on the front brake, so if you pull the front brake, the taillight will flash, letting people know that you're stopping. It also has a parking brake, which for a trike is definitely a requirement these days. Because the trike bounces, it can easily roll away on a hill if you're on an incline or something like that. So the fact that we've got this parking brake here, we can engage it, stop it from rolling down said hill. The RadTrike also has front and rear lights, which can be activated by a simple click of the button on our display that we already talked about. On the safety standard side, all of Rad's bikes and the RadTrike are UL 2849 certified, and all of their batteries are UL 2271 certified. So this basically means all their components and the final product have been verified as safe and to standard for the Underwriters Laboratories, which is what UL stands for. And if you didn't know what that meant, you learned something. Speaking of measurements, as we just were, obviously, let's talk about some of the most important measurements here. Talked about the width, but what are some of the other main measurements you'd want to know? The other two dimensions to look at are the total length, which is 59 inches from the front tire to the rear tires, and the height, which I measured at 30 inches at the top of the folded handlebars. Now I also removed the seat for that because if you're transporting it and you need the height as low as possible for putting in the back of an SUV, something like that, you can easily remove the saddle, and that's not a real limitation. You also have the option to remove the 4 bolts in the center of the frame to make the RadTrike very compact, but this can be a bit cumbersome to do, especially by yourself, so I don't foresee a ton of folks utilizing that capability. If you're interested in a trike that is easy to get on and off, the RadTrike has an effective standover height of 13.5 inches, making it easy to hop on and off, especially because it's already balanced, unlike a traditional e-bike. The next main measurements to look at are all about you, and we're going to do that by looking at the minimum saddle height and the maximum saddle height to see if you'd fit on it and be comfortable. I measured the minimum seat height at 28 inches to the floor and 26 inches to the pedal at its lowest point. Now the only caveat here is the seat post is actually a little bit too long to go all the way down, so if you had your local bike shop cut down or just swapped out the seat posts, you could get an additional 2 inches taken off the minimum seat height. I measured the maximum seat height at 35 inches to the floor and 33.5 inches to the pedals at the lowest point. Now you'd expect the ratio to remain the same, but if you look at the trike from the side, you'll notice that it has a pedal forward design and an angled seat post tube, so as you go up, it actually scoots back from the bottom bracket. A pedal forward design here means it'll take some of the strain off your knees because you don't have to go as high as if the saddle was right above the bottom bracket. Next, let's chat about some of the extras that come standard on the RadTrike. The first extra to talk about are these fenders. So we've got one fender up here in the front, 2 over the back 2 wheels, and all those fenders have these nice little rubber flaps at the bottom to help with extra spray from, loose rocks and dirt and water and things like that. We also have a full chain guard, which is an excellent touch, and something that's pretty interesting is a guard over the rear axle assembly to keep any chain grease from flinging up on the bottom side of the rear rack. Both of these guards here I think were pretty well thought out and not something we see on a lot of trikes out there. Next, we will answer some questions from the internet. First question is, when you're not using the motor, do the pedals drive one rear wheel or both rear wheels? The answer is when pedaling, you're only driving the rear right wheel, while the rear left wheel has some pretty nice bearings and it just kind of glides along. So if you took the trike and you tipped it up on the left side and you're pedaling, you'd be going nowhere because all of the gearing goes to that back right tire. Question 2, is there a differential on the rear axle? Yes, and this allows the rear wheels to turn at different speeds so you can make, some decent turns and not just have to, do what most other trikes have to do. 3, I need to know the width of this trike so I know if I can take it through doorways. Well, we've already talked about it, but to answer this question, the total width here is 33 1/8 inch, so it's good to measure any doors or passageways you have to take it through. The next thing to talk about is the buying process. So if you decide that, I think the RadTrike kind of hits all those check marks I was looking for, how do I get my hands on one? So you can do it in a couple of ways. The first one is you can go to their website, order it straight to your house, assemble it. You can also go to a Rad showroom, which just has Rad bikes, as the name implies. They also have a network of local bike shops that sell their product, maybe some other products. So I would check to see if there's a local dealer in your area. The fourth option is you could go to your local bike shop, let them know you're interested in bringing this trike in, and they might be able to assemble it for a small fee. They're probably not gonna do it for free unless you're like best friends with them. Maybe bring them some cookies. That might help, yeah. Now with some companies that do a lot of direct to consumer marketing, they don't give you a lot of options. It's just basically like, order it, put it together yourself. However, with Rad, you got 4 different options, so whichever flavor kind of works for you. If you did want to order it direct to your house and you want to assemble it together, the assembly process here isn't terribly difficult, but I did find that putting the frame together by myself a little bit cumbersome. So I've assembled about 1,000 e-bikes at this point, and I'm not joking about that number. For me, I'd probably rate it about a 5 out of 10 for difficulty, 10 being the hardest, 1 being the easiest. Because you have to assemble the middle of the frame, which to me was the most cumbersome part. You also have to put on the handlebars. That was pretty simple. A lot of e-bikes will have that. Other than that, what else did we do? The fenders in the rear, a little bit time consuming. They're easy to put on, but just the way that it is designed and how close it is to that rear axle cover, it just takes a long time. You got to put the Allen key in there, twist it a little bit, twist it a little bit. So easy to do, a little time consuming. And then the front light, easy peasy. So that is pretty much it. Other than that, we put on the pedals, we air up the tires, and that is pretty much it. So again, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, maybe just because of that center bracket there, but all in all, fairly easy to put together. Thank you guys so much for watching another one of these Perfect Ride Series videos. We're gonna be covering a lot of the most popular bikes on the market, such as Rad Power Bikes, electric, a few other surprises along the way. So if you have any suggestions on how we can make these videos better, if there are certain things we didn't cover that you want us to cover in future versions of this series, let us know down in the comments. And if you watch this whole video, and let's say now you're a little bit more confused than you were before, leave us a comment down below and we'll see if we can help you down there in the comments. Thank you guys so much for riding along with us, and we'll catch you on the next one.